Yo, what up, what up, what up? It is your man, Mr. Controversy. Did you miss me? Yes, and we are back once again. Me and my guy, Danny Thompson, here for the top 10s. You know how we've been doing. And this week we are doing top 10 wide receivers of the 2000s. And this is from 2000 to 2009. So this is not all of 2000, like 2010. No, this is the decade. We're doing decades, all right? First of
Exactly.
all, how's it going, man?
Man, most importantly, like I know our third partner in this show the last couple weeks, the beeping noise in my background is no longer he was fired over the weekend, last couple weeks. But transitioning into Charlotte, being back in my home city, in the hometown, it's a good feeling. I
Mhm.
miss Orlando, but it's good to be home. I can't complain.
That's good, man. I'm glad you're here. Everyone who is listening, please, 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 or watching, I should say, go ahead and share this. It's going to be fun. We're going to have some fun. And it's been a couple of weeks since we've done it. A lot of things been going on, like stated. Danny moved. It was Father's Day, so
Hmm.
we wanted to, you know, leave that for the children and family to honor us, which we should.
Hmm.
And but it's time to get rolling, man.
You forgot
So
Fourth of July weekend too, so
yeah, I don't care about no
I
Fourth of
know.
July,
I'm just saying. Some
but
folks celebrate it. It is
some
what it is.
yeah celebrate it. Right, right, right. We didn't do it because I had family had to come in. I couldn't do it, so that's why I didn't do it. But I want to ask you first of all, this list, how hard was it?
Of all the weeks we've done this quite possibly might have been the hardest um, one to do, list wise, because there's so many good receivers on
Mhm.
this list, and it trickles down so far, and it's like you just have to figure out the list. But I had about, I'm gonna say 18 to 20 that could have made the top 10. How about
Mm.
you?
Um, I had 15. It probably could have been that. I shut it down after like I had a bar, but like you said, I had maybe 18 to 20 before it was like, all right, they can make the list. You know what I'm saying? So, all right, man. So again, like I said, if you're watching, appreciate you watching. Make sure you share. This is gonna be fun. Um, Danny, I'm going to start with you. So how we do it again? If this is, it's been a minute. So how we go is we have our top 10 already made. We're gonna go one by one. So Danny goes first. He goes with his number 10. Then I'll follow with number 10. We'll go all the way down to six. After six, we switch. I will go first. Then he will go first all the way to one. And afterwards we'll judge and criticize each other's work or list or what have you, man. So we appreciate you looking. I was gonna say, just make sure that if you can, go ahead and comment. We want you to comment. Definitely comment. We'll put the comments up throughout the show. It'll be fun. That's how we do. As a matter of fact, just to show you, you know, Miss Precious, how you doing? Hope I'm saying your name correctly.
Yeah, you said it.
Yeah, okay, Precious. Thank you for joining in. Cortland, my man. Yeah, here we go.
Here we
Make sure
go.
y'all share, man. So we about to do this. Okay, Danny.
Let's go.
So you up first. Who do you have?
All right. We talk about numbers, and it's not all necessarily about numbers for the whole decade. But my number 10 has done something that it was very rare to do. My number 10 is Wes Welker from the New England Patriots. I know you're saying, Wes
Hmm,
Welker, why Wes Welker? If you
hmm,
look at the entire decade for 10 years, three of the top reception seasons out of the top 11 came from Wes Welker. In three consecutive seasons, he caught over 110 passes 3 years in a row when he got to New England. On top of that, the last year in Miami caught 67 passes. He didn't really take flight into the NFL's eyes until 2006. But if you look at one of the major cogs in Tom Brady's offense, it's all about consistency, it's all about numbers, and all about being able to move the chains and make life easier for Tom Brady. Wes Walker was that guy.
Mm.
First downs, it was very rare to have anybody catch more first downs than Wes Welker. Just the underneath routes, if it's 3rd and 7, he's getting you 8 yards. If it's you need a big catch, he's going to do it. He was even good in special teams. But as far as wide receivers go in the decade, listen, like I said, 112, 111, 123. He led the league twice in catches. So I got Wes Walker at number 10.
Okay. Good choice. Good choice. My number 10, this was hard. I hated to do this. Like I said, this is people don't understand how hard it is to come up with these, man. And this is one of them. So my number 10 is a guy that played the wide receiver position, probably like a running back. He was very forget running back, fullback, linebacker, what have you. But he was consistent. He was catch, he can block. You always had to look out for him if he was a defensive guy. You had to keep your head on swivel, and that's my guy, Hines Ward. I'm going Hines Ward at number 10. Now, when you look at Hines Ward numbers, you're like, because most people forget about Hines Ward, and don't think about what he did, but this is a guy that had 71 touchdowns, man, 6,000-yard receiving seasons in a decade. This is from 2000 to 2009, so he was very productive, low key. He wasn't that guy that was going to get you 150 yards a game and 3 touchdowns. But you see, he caught touchdowns in the red zone. He was a beast. Played hard. Like I said, in the blocking, probably the best blocking wide receiver in the game, and he was intimidating as well. So very tough. And it's funny because I always think about Danny. Every time he would catch the ball, he would get knocked, hit, whatever. He'll wake up. He'll get up. All you see is teeth smiling. And I know that had to be like discouraging for a defensive player, man, knowing that God, I just rocked him out. You know what I'm saying? Knocked his brains out. And this dude come up smiling. Like, what else can I do? So that is my number 10 wide receiver.
All right. Well, that's an interesting one on that one. So, hey, they'll call you
Already?
Mr. They'll call you Mr. Controversy for a
Already?
reason. All right, my number 9. We mentioned the word consistent, and this guy I think is underrated. When you look at the entire decade itself, a guy that is one of the best receivers that no one talks about is Tennessee Titans Derrick Mason. He played half a decade in Tennessee, half in Baltimore, but Derrick Mason was underrated. And when I say underrated, he didn't have the accolades. He was only a Pro Bowler twice in a decade. But when you talk about catches, top 5. Receiving yards, top 5. He was top 5 the entire decade, all the way around. It was 7 1,000-yard seasons in the decade. He was arguably, to me, other than Steve McNair and Eddie George, he might have been the best Titan in the franchise's history. Because no one did more. The only thing people know Derrick Mason for is falling 1 yard short in the Super Bowl. That's the only thing people remember Derrick Mason for. But you don't remember Derrick Mason for all the 1,000-yard receivers seasons. He did it with 2 franchises, not 1, but 2. So I look at consistency. I look at the 1,000-yard receiving seasons and everything else he's done. Derrick Mason's underrated. 10,000 yards in the decade. He's number 9 on my list.
Man, that's a good choice. And actually, that's who I have as my number 9. I mean, you said it. Very underrated. I was just shocked that I knew he was good. I was shocked that, and
He was that good.
Because I used to always say he was always underrated, but I didn't realize that he had 8 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Like, that's crazy. As a matter of fact, on this list, well, this might be the top or next to the top, but he's right there. If not number one, he's right there. So, and he never got hurt. That's the
Mm-mm.
thing, that he was always accountable. He was always reliable. He didn't get hurt. He was always there, and he played with some Well, I ain't gonna say garbage quarterbacks, but he played with some garbage systems. I'll put it like that. Because
Stop it.
in the system with Tennessee, they didn't let Aaron McNair throw the ball.
They
That
didn't.
was that was run. You know how Fisher do, Jeff
Hmm.
Fisher. Even with Flacco, it really wasn't a pass first offense. It was, let's get the ball to Ray Rice, let's run the ball around with defense. We'll throw it when we can.
Hmm.
He was just always reliable. So yeah, that's my number 9 wide receiver. Your number 8, sir.
Number 8 is one half of the one of the probably arguably one of the best duos in the entire NFL when it comes to receiving duos in history, and that's Miami. That's Indianapolis and former Miami University of Miami star Reggie Wayne. Listen, Reggie Wayne is finally going to get his plaque in Canton in the Hall of Fame once everything and COVID settles down. But even though he was considered a number 2 wide receiver, quote unquote, air quote, in Indianapolis,
Mhm.
in 2007 led the NFL in receiving yards over 1,500. Had 3 seasons in the decade of over 10 touchdowns. Yeah, because Marvin Harris is on one side, but you have to understand Reggie Wayne was getting thrown the ball 120, 130 times a season. So he wasn't some regular number 2. He was an elite number 2 who in some cases is a number 1. Reggie Wayne ran every route. He got open, he blocked, and he was part of one of the best offenses in the entire decade. A very it was I to me that offense was just about as good or even better than the Dallas offenses we talked about in the 90s with their big 3. I mean, Reggie Wayne was a fourth.
Yeah.
So when it comes to 1,000-yard seasons, Reggie Wayne had a 1,000-yard season every season from 2004 to the end of the decade. He was consistent. Like you said, he wasn't injured. Outside of 2002, his first 2 seasons, he didn't miss a single game the rest of the decade after his first 2 years as a rookie.
Mhm.
So, I mean, listen, Reggie Wayne was that guy, and it's the fact that if he didn't have Marvin Harrison overshadowing him, this number would be even higher. So I have Reggie Wayne next to this list at number 8.
Okay. Um, Due to the fact that there was a minor change before the show started, we have the same people. That wasn't on my end, but no, but I have Reggie Wayne once again at 8, just like you, man. Like you said, another consistent guy. Reggie Wayne was a wide receiver that he probably wasn't going to break any tackles. He wasn't going to turn a 10-yard catch into a 50-yard touchdown. That wasn't
Mm-hmm.
him. I mean, he just didn't do that. But he would run routes just the way you wanted. He was professional. He was what's another word? Quiet but good. You know what I'm saying? He was that guy that was quiet but still dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't make a lot of noise. He didn't really talk mess. He might point to the first time he made a tough catch. But yeah, still you just knew what you was gonna get with him, man. And I'm going Reggie Wayne as my number 8. All right, man. Might get interesting now. Who is your number 7?
All right. So listen, I'm gonna have to dance my way into number 7 because I'm going with Cincinnati's Chad Johnson or Chad Ocho Cinco. I'm kicking the field goal on this one, kicking the soccer ball. Listen, Chad Johnson might arguably be one of the best route runners I've ever seen in the NFL. Like I said, not named Chris Carter. There wasn't a route Chad Johnson could not run. There wasn't one. Chad Johnson did everything you asked him to do, was super versatile, caught the ball, ran the ball. He did every little thing possible. But if you look at what Chad Johnson did as far as the decade goes, not counting all the off the field stuff and kicking pylons, he caught touchdowns. I mean, he had was it 6 seasons of the decade where he had 5 or more touchdowns. He
Mm-hmm.
caught passes from everybody. 5-time Pro Bowler, 2-time All Pro guy. He did everything. On top of that, he had three seasons over 1,300 yards in the decade.
Mm.
3 of them, including it would have been a 4 season of over 1,400 yards. This man was basically a route running, yards after the catch machine throughout the whole decade. And when you got the ball in front of, when you threw the ball at him, he caught it. And Chad Johnson did everything, and he made the Cincinnati Bengals relevant.
Mhm.
It wasn't the Bungles anymore. He was one of the reasons why they were relevant in the entire decade. And like I said, you saw us dance in the end zone. You kind of earned extra points for that. So I got Chad Johnson here.
Interesting. Wow, interesting. Okay. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying it's interesting. Okay, so my number 7 wide receiver. This so this we've been talking. This one right here is not about stats. This is more about just who the man was, what he represented. Um, Tough, um, determined, a competitor, warrior. And this is my guy. I know a lot of people don't might not like this pick, but oh well. I'm going with Steve Smith, y'all. Steve Smith. Why do I choose Steve Smith at number 7? Okay, so Steve Smith, first of all, garbage quarterbacks in the decade of 2000. We're talking Jake Delhomme,
Listen, Jake Delhomme got into the Super Bowl and a Bojangles commercial. Can we get that?
Jimmy Clausen.
Okay.
Who else? I can't even name them. Steve Beuerlein. So he's had no help. Never had that. He had LaFell, but this was after the decade. So he never had that second wide receiver you could depend on. They were a running team, ran the ball, a lot on defense. But Steve Smith was a guy that he can catch that 8 yard route, break 5 tackles and take it to the house. One thing about Steve Smith was the guy that when it was a tough game or a big game, he always came through. I know he killed my Chicago Bears. He killed them every time we play him. It's, it's crazy that I like him just because of that. But also, Steve Smith was that guy where he was going to will not only himself but that team to a win. And I think just for that matter, I mean, he had what 50 touchdowns. He had 5 1,000-yard receivers. So it wasn't like he was garbage, nothing like that. But I'm just saying he did this with no quarterback, with no help. Like what other wide receiver or what other offensive player on his team that was you consider good? I mean,
D'Angelo
what was the
Williams,
last name? D'Angelo Williams, he had a couple of good seasons.
Deshaun Foster,
Jonathan Stewart was all right.
Deshaun Foster.
Nah.
I mean, didn't he have Masin Muhammad at wide receiver too, though? The former Chicago Bear Masin Muhammad?
Yeah, Muhammad left too in like '06, but Muhammad had what, maybe 2 good years, maybe. But like I said, Muhammad. You saw potential in Carolina because they had no quarterback. I mean, they had Jake Delhomme, but come on, man, Jake Delhomme. But
listen, he has Bojangles commercials. He has Bojangles commercials in North Carolina. That automatically makes him a star player.
But yes, still, Steve Smith came. He was going to perform. He was going to catch the ball, do all the dirty work. He blocked, and we know you weren't going to punk him. You know, we seen him punk some teammates in practice. But
Josh Norman.
yeah, that's my number 7 guy,
All
Steve
right.
Smith.
Number 6 didn't play the entire decade. All right. But number 6 had more Pro Bowl appearances than the majority of the folks in the decade. He had more double-digit touchdown reception seasons than I think 99% of the receivers in the decade. And that's the guy who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, arguably to me one of the 5 greatest wide receivers of all time, and it should be. And that's Larry Fitzgerald of the Arizona Cardinals. Listen, Larry Fitzgerald did everything besides route running, besides catching. He blocked, but he also put up numbers in Arizona's offense. He had, in the decade, Raphael, mind you, he came in the league in 2004. He had 490 plus catch seasons, and he would have had a fifth if he wouldn't have gotten hurt and missed 3 or 4 games back in 2006. He caught 1,000 yards in every season, with the exception of the rookie season and the season where he got hurt. Had four. Like I said, he led the league in touchdowns twice and caught over 50 touchdowns, which put him in the top 7. And he only started in 2004. Larry Fitzgerald doesn't drop passes; he always gets open. And you talking about playing with some of the interesting quarterbacks? He had his share as well too. But remember, he carried the Arizona offense for a very, very long time. And guess what? There wasn't nothing Larry Fitzgerald could not do. And also, if you want somebody to go get in the red zone, he might be the second best guy to go get it in the red zone, other than somebody we'll probably be naming later. So I got Larry Fitzgerald at 6.
Okay. Again, because of I'm gonna keep saying this, man. Because of a slight change at the end, all your picks now turn into my picks. So this is who I had. I had at number 6. That's who I had. I had Larry Fitzgerald. I mean, you said it all. You talked about stats. I'll go away from stats now. His second season. Well, let me say this stat first. His second season, he had 100. Hell, 103 receptions.
Mm-hmm. Almost 1,500 receiving yards.
Your second season? And Anquan Boldin was the man before then. But we all know if you threw a ball his way, he was going to come down with it. He wasn't going to drop the ball. He was very professional. Like, I had never seen somebody that young be as professional as he was.
Mm-hmm.
He came up big in big games. He took Arizona to the Super Bowl that year in the playoffs. He did all of that. And this was a guy that knew his routes, probably knew your routes, knew the defense, studied. This is what you talk about when you say you come prepared for the game. You know, we look at Jerry Rice. I know for my generation, Jerry Rice was that guy. Well, the next generation, this is him. You know, he was prepared. He was professional. You never see him get in anybody's face. And after a while, the defensive players start respecting him, and you didn't see nobody get in his face. You didn't see anyone get in his face. He was like the Dan Marino of wide receiver. You know, Dan Marino never really got sacked hard, you know, after like his 6th season because they liked him. That's how Fitzgerald is to DBs. So they respected him. But hey, man, this guy is. We can say at one point, you know, you always talked about T.O. Moss, but you got to put this guy in that conversation now. And after that, right after Rice, you got to put him in a tier 2 level.
I mean, and don't forget, he had some of the best teachers. Remember, his dad was a sports writer in Minnesota, so he was the ball boy during the early years with Chris Carter and Jake Reed in the 90s. So he learned how to run routes from the best teachers you possibly can while your dad is writing articles for the Vikings. So yeah.
Right. Yeah, he said that I got a chance to talk to his father, and his father said that he would Moss and all of them, Randall Cunningham, they would play catch with him. Moss would play catch with him. Chris Carter them. So he was around that. Like you said, he absorbed all of that greatness, man. So that's my number 6. All right. So we're gonna take not a commercial break, but we're gonna take a second. We're gonna go to the comments. So Mike Patton said I was gonna say he got numbers but no rings, which put Larry Fitzgerald in the same combo as Marino. Right. And he was saying when I made a reference to Marino, you're right. And it's not his fault. Like, it wasn't Marino's fault. But this definitely wasn't his fault. And like, can we say, you know, we talk about Moss and T.O., everybody talks about them, and we'll probably get to them later on. But can we really put Fitzgerald in that combo?
I don't think right. I don't think you see why you can't.
With Chris Carter? I mean, I would know a lot of people leave out Chris Carter. I don't know why, but
I think he has more. I think what the thing that was he has more tackles than drop passes in his career. Like, Look how long Larry Fitzgerald's played. More tackles than drop passes.
That's crazy.
That means either A, he's had some really terrible quarterbacks that throw a lot of interceptions, or B, his hands are like glue. I'm going to go with the latter more than the first part. So, I mean, I think we look at what the greatest wide receivers of all time. Like I said, he's probably in the top five. He just
Hmm.
gets undershadowed because he never won a Super Bowl.
Right. Yeah. I'm go. I'm not gonna critique them as far as I don't like it. You was tripping, but I'm gonna go back to Derrick Mason. You think he's the most underrated wide receiver this
In the
from our
decade,
generation?
he is because no one talks about Derrick Mason.
Who would you put above him besides the decade?
Um, in the history of the NFL,
Hmm.
underrated. I mean, Derrick Mason was up there. I think to me, I think Roddy White of the Atlanta Falcons was underrated. He put up huge numbers for
Okay.
the Falcons over the years. Um, you have to all time NFL. I don't think Fitzgerald will get his due. I think he's underrated because he won't get his due as one of the five greatest receivers. So I think he'll be underrated because people won't put him in the top five. People put Marvin Harrison ahead of him more likely before it's all said and done.
So you put wait, say it again. You put
I think
Fitz,
Fitzgerald will probably be considered underrated because a lot of people won't have Larry Fitzgerald in their top
right,
five all time.
but you have him more underrated than Derrick Mason.
Well, all I'm saying is because I think Larry Fitzgerald's top five all time. So
Okay.
since he's top five all time in my book, I think if you ask a lot of people, they won't consider Larry Fitzgerald in the top five. So I'll say he's underrated if he's not a top five wide receiver. Otherwise, Derek Mason's on that list. You look at Roddy White is underrated. Um, all time, you just tell me go off the top of the head. Um,
I'm of our generation because
of our
I was old
of
because
our
I was old.
generation, Derek Mason's probably up there. I mean, he's probably one too. Um,
Okay.
there's wow, you put me on the spot on that one. Mason's up there. I know that. That's definite.
Okay. So I just all right. I'm with you, man. I just wanted to make sure we were
On the
let's
same page.
yeah, we were on the same page. One more. Mike came up and Pittsburgh and Big Ben just came back and made it happen with Santonio Holmes. Tough luck.
These must be talking about Fitzgerald not winning the Super Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, uh-huh. That's what it was. Because Fitzgerald got that.
The touchdown.
He got the touchdown to put him ahead. The go ahead touchdown. Broke it. Yeah. All right. So this is where we switch. I'm gonna go first. You're gonna go first. Oh, also let me do this just in case y'all came late. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to run. We haven't run the ticker all week, all show, but this is Danny's bottom five right here. As y'all can see, that's his bottom five. So if y'all missed it, that's what he's doing right there. And here's mine, Mr. Controversy's bottom five, whatever. Like I said, we gonna go through them and run through them and see who we don't agree with. But all right, so here we go. So we're gonna go with the top five. So my top five. This is where to me it was tough from 5 through 10. Like I kept switching. I kept switching. But I'm going to go, believe it or not, I'm going Chad Johnson with my number five wide receiver. Now, you talk about somebody that's very underrated. Chad Johnson, man. This guy, he it wasn't that he was a machine. He only had 62 touchdowns in the decade. I shouldn't say only because that's still good,
Mhm.
but he had 7 1,000 yard receiving seasons. Of course, 6 Pro Bowls, 2 All Pro. But like you stated earlier, this dude can run a route. And the funny thing about him was him and Carson, which came out later, that he can run a route like no other. But most of the time, the routes he was running wasn't the route. Like you run this route, this is what we're gonna do. No, him and Carson had that chemistry where he would kind
Mhm.
of do his own routes. He would read the defense and they'll look at each other, and then he'll make his routes. probably the best cut in the game. You know how he run one way and then cut and go the opposite way.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the best in the game. I mean, he was crazy with that. Chad Johnson, this dude was so good. Y'all remember that year when he put a list of all the top cornerbacks? He went against top cornerbacks that year
Put the list out.
and went through them. Only one that got him was D'Angelo Hall. And Chad got a touchdown in that game. D'Angelo had 2 picks in that game, though. That's the only one that had him. But Chad had a touchdown. He also had I forgot who it was, but he dude had the best of them. Chad only had like 4 catches for like 40 yards, but he said he still marked that as a win because he said he had help. Dude had help.
Exactly.
But yeah, man, Chad Johnson, you knew he was getting the ball. You still couldn't stop him. He would run inside routes. He would run slants, go up the middle, out routes, post patterns, flies, whatever. He could do it all. He was tough. He could catch. He didn't drop many passes. Make the acrobatic catches as well. It's my guy, man. Chad Ocho Cinco. That's my number 5.
All right. My number 5 is a guy you had a little lower on your list. My number 5 is a guy I think you had, I think I want to say is number 10, and that's Pittsburgh's Hines Ward. All right, listen. Blocking, he's arguably the best blocking wide receiver on this entire list.
Mm-hmm.
Consistency, he did 6 1,000-yard seasons in the decade. But one thing about Hines Ward that a lot of people don't remember is in the decade, his catch percentage was under 60% twice. He caught less than 60% of the balls thrown to him only twice in the decade. Mm-hmm. He had 2 seasons where he caught over 70% of the balls thrown to him. Mm. Okay. He had a stretch of a couple of years where he didn't have 1,000-yard seasons. But in 2008 and 2009, after having the first 4 seasons of the decade over 1,000, he knocked over 1,000 the last 2 seasons of the decade. Had double-digit touchdowns 3 times, caught 9 touchdowns. I think it was twice in the decade. Hines Ward did everything. We talk about a full-fledged, complete receiver. The only thing missing about Hines Ward was he wasn't 6'5" and could outrun you. He ran every route. And like I said, you mentioned earlier, when he was a guy that would get hit, smile like Rod Tidwell and Jerry Maguire, smile at you, get up on the next play and put you on your back when they're giving the ball to Jerome Bettis. Very few guys in the league could actually do that, and nobody was better than Hines Ward. So I have Hines Ward number 5.
Ooh, okay. You made a good argument, but whew. All right. So my number 4 wide receiver. You talk about a wide receiver where when you think of wide receiver, this is who he is. Reggie Wayne was one of those guys where, ran his routes, did everything you wanted him to, and that was it. He wasn't a rah-rah guy like that. He wasn't going to take it to the house, but he was crisp routes, sure hands, studied, knew what he was going to do. This is hard, but I got to go with him, man. And got to go with Tory Hope. Tory Holt. I know Cortland keeps saying over Reggie Wayne. Yes, Cortland, over Reggie Wayne. Yes. This is kind of who Reggie remind me of, except for he's not as fast as Tory. I don't think he's as fast as Tory. But Tory, man, you talk about somebody. This dude's hands. Y'all ever see his finger where like his middle finger is like bent like that? Mm-hmm. But still caught. So he had playing with 4 fingers and still caught the balls, man. It's crazy. You got Isaac Bruce on the other hand. You say, well, he's playing with Isaac Bruce, but yes, still he got his. Even when Isaac retired, he still got his. Even when Warner was gone, Bolger was there, and Bolger kind of went down. He got his. Marshall was gone. He got his. This man was a beast. 68 touchdowns, 8 1,000-yard receiving season. So he did it. He had two 1,600 yards receiving seasons, over 1,600 yards. I mean, he could do it all, man. He could run every route you want. Now, the only thing I didn't like about Tory, but I respect it, as soon as he caught the ball, if he seen anybody 5 yards within 5 yards, he was going down. I used to hate that. But other than that, I mean, this is a wide receiver. You talking about study from the best. That's what he was, man. That's my number 4 pick.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Nice number four. Nice number four. So my number four, listen, played on one of the best offenses of the decade. Um, I mentioned his tag team partner Reggie Wayne earlier, and I'm going with Marvin Harrison, the Indianapolis Colts. Listen, Marvin Harrison did everything as a wide receiver. The only he led the decade in catches twice, led the decade in receiving yards twice in two different seasons. And it was a 2002, 143 catches, 1,700 yards in the same season. Led the league in both categories. He had double digit touchdown. Was it 6, 7 times in the decade? He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, all easily. There wasn't anything that Marvin Harrison couldn't do. His numbers, kind of like Reggie Wayne, was if the other person wasn't there. Can you imagine how many more catches, yards, and everything else he would have had in the decade if he didn't have Reggie Wayne? Also, remember, if Dallas Clark wasn't there or Edgerrin James, who's one of the best pass catching backs in the decade, wasn't there, he would have led the decade in almost every single category. But the other guys on my list are had a little bit better of a decade than Marvin Harrison. Not to say he was bad throughout the decade. He was phenomenal. But even though he was that great, he's just at number 4. So I have him at 4.
Okay. Number 4, right? Okay. Well, I'm going with Harrison at number 3. Everything you said about this guy, we talked about the 143 season where he had 143 catches. We know that 95 touchdowns in the decade, 7 1,000-yard receiving yards. We know that 3 times over 100 catches. If it wasn't for him getting hurt when he tore his Achilles, he would be unstoppable, Danny. He would have. Who knows where he would have been in the all-time record book? That slowed him down because and that was the days. Those still were the days where he came back and played, which was a miracle then. But he wasn't the same Marvin Harrison. But this was a guy. I talked about Tory Hope. This probably was the other receiver that I say when you look at what a receiver is, that's him. Ran his routes, but this dude had speed. He had all speed. He had hands. He could run routes. He was smart. And in the first 5, 6 seasons, this dude was eating McDonald's every day. I don't know if you remember him talking about that.
I remember hearing the story.
Burger King every day. You got him at number 4. I mean, I think he's at number 3. He's supposed to be number 3, but I wasn't putting him below number 4 anyway because I ain't want no problems with him, But I'm saying we all know about that. But
I'm good on that one.
Yeah, I don't have no problems with him. But no, man, this guy was a beast, man. I just think that in a decade, like I said, he probably was top 2, top 3, like I have him. And if he wouldn't have got hurt, who knows, man? He might be number 1. Because 98 touchdown. And last 2 seasons, he was hurt. He missed 3rd. He came back, then he played another one after that. So we might be looking at the most touchdowns in the decade if it wasn't for that Achilles. I think he tore his Achilles or tore his ACL, either or. So I got him at number 3.
So my number 3. All right, Raphael. So I got one for you. Who led the decade in catches, yards, averaged over 14 and a half yards a catch, still caught 68 touchdowns, and played one season with the Jacksonville Jaguars and still did all these numbers? That's Tory Hope. Listen, He caught 868 catches for almost 13,000 yards in the entire decade, and also spent a season with the Jacksonville Jaguars where he caught 50 passes. You're talking about a guy that's very quiet. You said quiet, can still break games open, make plays, but when you needed yards, he averaged 14 and a half yards a catch.
Mm-hmm.
One of the main reasons why the St. Louis Rams were one of the best offenses of the decade, with or without Kurt Warner. Like you said, he did it with Mark Bolger as quarterback. If he would have stayed in St. Louis that last year, he would have caught 900 passes in a 10-year period. Think about that for a second. That's almost 90. That's almost 90 catches a season. Consistency. On top of the fact of, if you look at Tory Holt, he ran every route from 1 through 9. You had to guard him on every route 1 through 9. Also had 2 seasons where he caught over 100 yards a game for the whole season. Had 2 seasons where he caught over 1,600 yards receiving. He caught almost 13,000 yards in the decade and played for the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you talk about Marvin Harrison tearing his Achilles, if we get Tory Holt away from the Jacksonville Jaguars, can you imagine what his numbers would have been like too? That's all I'm saying. I got Tory Holt number 3.
Good argument. I don't know, but great argument. My number 2. Which one is it going to be? This guy caught a lot of touchdown passes. It was scary to guard this man. The media didn't like him, even though he really wasn't that bad of a guy. Probably say, Mr. Controversy, which one are you talking about? You talking about Foss? Are you talking about we're gonna go with T.O. as my number 2. Man, I battle with myself, wondering should I go with him or Moss. All right, so we're gonna glorify T.O. right now though. T.O., I mean, 114 TDs in a decade, 8 1,000-yard receiving seasons. Take it to the house. Now, you talk about a receiver that everybody wanted, or your typical receiver. This was the perfect receiver because he can block, a very good blocker. He could block, he'd go across the middle, take it to the house, take a 5-yard pass, take it to the house, break 2 tackles, take it to the house, run a fly pattern, run a post, run a curl, whatever you wanted him to do, he could do it all. And we talk about big games. When it was time for the headlights, or if it was time for the bright lights, it was just time to watch TV. It's prime time. T.O. was gonna perform like no other wide receiver. Loved the bright lights. I mean, Jerry Rice bought out, of course. We know that in Monday night, so I guess you could say him. But besides Jerry, and I'm not even just talking about this decade, just throughout, nobody in prime time, bright lights, when it was a big show, showed out like T.O. I mean, of course, I don't even have to mention the Eagles. I'm not even going to say that because that wouldn't be fair. You know, that might sway my answer into making him number 1. But this was a guy that was tough. This was a guy that wanted the ball. And when you gave it to him, he delivered. You know what I'm saying? I love me some me. The only reason why I got him at number 2, well, I shouldn't say the only, but one of the reasons, the main reason was drops. He had a case of the drops, Danny. So because of that, I have to put him at number 2. So that's my guy, T.O.
For me, this decision was just about as hard, but I think you made the same point I was going to make when it came to the difference between one receiver and the other one. Listen, Terrell Owens is number 2 on my list, and yes, big play. If you're trying to create the prototypical video game wide receiver, you want him looking like Terrell Owens. You want his size, his speed, the strength, like you said, blocking. there wasn't anything Terrell Owens could not do on the field. He is a physical specimen. You want to play bump and run with Terrell Owens? Have fun with that. You want somebody to run a jet sweep and you need somebody to make a block? He's the guy to do it.
Mm-hmm.
We've already talked about the numbers. I mean, he had 6 seasons a decade where he caught over 10 touchdowns this season. All right. He had two 90-yard plus catches for touchdowns in the decade. So he broke games open with big plays. He blocked, but like you said earlier, the issue that made him not number one in my eyes, touchdowns included, was the fact of there were moments where he dropped the ball and you look at yourself like, why?
Easy drops. Now he would make tough ones too, but the easy catches, I'm saying, cross the middle wide open, nobody on him, and he'd drop it.
And you're looking like, why? But I'll tell you this: if I was creating a wide receiver, the only thing I would change about Terrell Owens would be his hands. Outside of that, he is a physical specimen human being, but a complete monster on the field. But I got Terrell Owens number two.
All right. So my number one, of course, you all know, like it was hard. I mean, it was hard. You know what I'm saying? I had to put this guy there. I didn't like I said, it was between him and T.O. And I'm going with Brandon Marshall. No, I'm just kidding, y'all. I'm going.
No, he actually had Brandon Marshall. That's the reason why we had to change the list. Let me stop playing. Go ahead, Raphael.
No, man. I have to go with Randy Moss. And the reason why I got Randy Moss, like I said, I'm more of a T.O. fan than Randy Moss, but Randy Moss, like people called him a one trick pony. He did more than that. Reason why we thought he was a one trick pony because of what you see now. He was gonna catch the deep ball and you couldn't stop him. But I was looking through, like he has 2 seasons over 71 first downs, more than T.O., which I was shocked at. So that lets you know that this guy was getting first downs. He was catching in between the 20s, 20-yard lines. Yeah, he could do that. He could do it all. And we really saw his game mature when he went to New England. Like that was kind of like, okay, I didn't know he had that type of game where he'd go across the middle. He was a freak. And look, this man had 128 touchdowns in a decade. This is not even counting 1998, which was probably his craziest year. Even though he had 23 with New England, 98 still to me is his best year ever. 1,000 yard receiving yards. He had 6 seasons with 13 touchdowns or more. Come on, man. And this is the guy we said he couldn't run across the middle. He was soft or nah. Remember, when he was in Minnesota balling after Chris Carter left, who you had? Jake Reed? He didn't really have a second person. He had Dante throwing him the ball and he took over. He did everything he could do, and he was just that guy, man. You couldn't stop him. And that's why I got Randy Moss as my number one receiver of the decade.
Listen, my first introduction to Randy Moss besides college, I'm not sure how many Raphael, how much of a video game guy you were, but NFL 2K on Dreamcast. And if you had Randy Moss on NFL 2K on Dreamcast, all you had to do, just like in real life, was just throw the ball in the air, hit the jump button, and Randy Moss was going to get it. That's all he had to do. Randy Moss was the perfect specimen. He was a all state high school basketball player because he had tremendous leaping ability. And as you see in these videos and the clips to the side, Randy Moss was an athletic freak of nature. But one thing about Randy Moss was he had all those great numbers in Minnesota. He went to Oakland for 2 years and kind of fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah.
He goes back to New England and arguably has the single greatest receiving season other than Jerry Rice in the 80s in one season. And the
Mm-hmm.
Patriots were one game away from being undefeated. Those 23 touchdowns in one season. I think he outscored a couple of teams by himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he made Tom Brady. He changed the norm of Tom Brady. He was a vertical deep threat that did everything. If you want to throw a post route, he was going to get it. Yeah, he don't go across the middle, but he'll kill you on a post route. If you want somebody to go straight down the field, there was nobody, no corner in the league that can go one on one with Randy Moss in the fly route. It wasn't happening. Like you mentioned, the first downs, the touchdowns, and the fact of he resurrected not one team but two teams in a decade and resurrected his career more than once. And he played for the Raiders. If you take away what he did for those years in Oakland, which were he had 1,000-yard season, and then he was just straight un-Randy Moss like that second year.
Mhm.
We talk about Tory Holt. We talk about Marvin Harrison. Can you imagine how many touchdowns? I think he had almost 130 touchdowns the decade. Raphael, how many touchdowns do you think he would have caught if he had decent and competent quarterbacks in Oakland?
Right.
And besides, he had one of the best touchdown celebrations you possibly find in the decade.
Yep.
It was that simple. It was too much spacing. So I have Randy Moss as number one. Easy. I think it was easier than we think in my book.
What?
I think having Moss over Owens was a little bit easier. I don't think it was as tough for me as it was for you.
It was tough for me. It was tough for me until I hadn't looked at numbers. But I'm not. I love numbers, but I'm more. As I got noted, I'm more of the eye test. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, those drops mess me up. All right, so let's go ahead and we're gonna do this quickly. So first, I'm gonna go to some comments. Surprised Andre Johnson didn't make this list. Cortland says, uh, when you look at we talk decade, you look at it, man. He only had what I can tell you now. I think
I
he
think he was one of
had
those guys that split the decade. Like his career was split between two decades. He
yeah
did he did damage on both decades.
right.
That's the
He
thing.
had four. He only had 1,000 yard receiving yards and 42 touchdowns. So he was in that middle where when he came in, he played some of the decade in 2010. So we couldn't get him. Kerry, what up, Kerry? Kerry says Moss was on that cover NFL 2K1. Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Human cheat
Um,
code too.
Mike Patton, of course, says I wonder what a matchup with Randy Moss and Deion Sanders would look like with both in their prime. Yeah, yeah. I hated that that Deion didn't play that guy. He played against once, but I hated that was that
Prime Dion was
Thanksgiving.
there.
I think that was
Yeah.
Thanksgiving.
Was he still at Dallas then?
Yeah, Deion didn't play though. He was with Dallas then, and Deion didn't play. Deion was hurt. I remember that.
I
All
don't.
right,
If you're throwing the ball up in the air, I don't know if Dion has the jumping ability to
right.
go in a
To
leaping
get there.
contest with Randy Moss.
Okay, man. So I'm gonna put this up. You go first. Like I said, we're gonna do this quickly. We're gonna try to get out at 8:45. What what I guess
Put your list up
which
again.
one? Which one? I'm gonna do top five. You want me to do top? I'm gonna do top five or bottom five.
Go bottom five, then go top five. And I'll look. I'll quickly look through them again.
So this is my bottom five right here,
Okay.
and then my top five right here.
All right. So the main issue I had with yours is one, Hines Ward was number 10. A guy that caught 10,000 yards in the decade, top five in that category, second in the decade in catches, and you have him at number 10, caught as many touchdowns as most of the receivers on this list, and
Yeah,
was a better blocker.
I'm gonna tell you why. Because and I loved Hines Ward, but when I look at everybody else, I had Derrick. I want to put him above Derrick Mason, and then you see after Derrick Mason, I had what Reggie Wayne. I can't put him over Reggie Wayne. I mean, I know Cortland kept arguing it, but I couldn't put him over Reggie Wayne. I'm not putting him over Steve Smith. I'm not,
Mm.
and Steve Smith, like I said, Steve Smith didn't perform because or have the numbers because of who he played with and what type of offense he was playing with. So then after that, you're gonna put him over Larry Fitzgerald? You're gonna put him over Chad Johnson? I'm shocked that you put him over Chad Johnson.
Why? He had 300 more, almost 300 more catches for a decade than Chad Johnson, caught more yards and more touchdowns.
Now remember,
Why wouldn't I?
part of that Chad Johnson was out, and I think he went to when did he go to Miami?
That was if
He
that
went
was
to
the,
he went to New England first.
but that was that was in the 2010s though.
Okay, because I could have sworn that I think Hines Ward played. No, they played about the same amount of seasons.
Hines Ward's last season was 2000. I want to say it's 2009.
Right.
Hold up. I want to say it's nine. I'll pull it up. It was 2011.
But
So
here it is though, and I know we shouldn't go with the 1,000 yard mark because that's not it. But I went with it. Chad got more 1,000 yard receiving, seasons, the Pro Bowls, the accolades. But we all know Chad Johnson was a
wasn't liked.
better route runner.
Yeah,
Huh?
but I mean, Chad Johnson wasn't the most liked player by people in the media. So the Pro Bowl voting, I didn't really say it because, like I said, when you look at To, you look at Moss and Chad Johnson,
Right.
they weren't the most favorite people by some.
And that's my point. And he still was able to make those Pro Bowls
But
and do
could
what he
Chad
did.
Johnson block like Hines Ward? Is my question. He couldn't.
No, he couldn't.
Chad Johnson can kick extra points, but I'm telling you, if you need a
But
third
if I
and one
but if I
and you
need
need somebody to block, who are who are you asking to make that lead block?
but if I need a 3rd and 5 or 3rd and 6, I'm
I'm
gonna go
giving
with that. No, I'm gonna go with Chad Johnson to make that
Hines
catch.
Ward will get it. Hines Ward will get it too.
Yeah, but I'll go with Chad Johnson before I go with Hines Ward. But
Ooh.
that's why I couldn't put him ahead because I saw it and I'm like, I'm gonna put
Ooh.
Chad Johnson at like number 6, but I couldn't do it.
Mm.
All right, so let me go to yours. I don't want to take the obvious
Go ahead, because I know where you're going with this. I've known you long enough to know where you're going with this.
because I was gonna clown you for Tory Home. I like your argument, so I won't. I still can't believe you put him ahead. I can't believe you put Wes Welker.
Listen,
You put Wes Welker over Steve Smith. He only had 4 good years, and that's only because you
but
had a Randy Moss. So to stretch the field. So now you got to play back because you can't worry about Moss. You got to remember they still had Dante Starworth. They had a nice.
Did you just say Dante Stallworth in this conversation?
No, but Dante Starworth was a nice wide receiver. So what I'm saying is
Dante Stallworth couldn't start for the Bears. Come on now.
They had weapons.
Stop it.
Look at Starworth. Look at his stats. Look at his stats, especially when he was in New England. They had pull up the stats. You like to pull up the stats. Look at what he did with New England. I'm saying they had a nice team, so you couldn't double anybody. That's why Moss, even though they had to, okay, we got to double Moss. But if you taking a safety out, you couldn't play Welker. Think about it. If Walker was that good, why wasn't he that good in Miami?
We caught 70 passes when
67.
they actually 70 passes. You actually put him in the lineup, and then he left for New England the next year.
1 year, but he was in Miami the year before. Like I said, he could get catches, but you jump from 70 or 67, what have
to
you,
120.
My point, because of who you playing with.
Okay, here's the thing. Steve Smith caught about 80 more passes in a decade than Wes Welker did. 80 more. And you're talking about Wes did it in 4 seasons.
And
Smith had the whole decade.
But look at Smith's quarterback. Look at Wes Welker quarterback at that time. Look who Wes Welker had as teammates. Look who Smith had as teammates. Look at the offense they ran.
So are we going to discount Reggie Wayne and other receivers because they had elite level talent around them? Then is that what we're saying?
No, because Reggie Wayne did it with 2 quarterbacks.
Reggie Wayne did it with Peyton Manning,
and he did it with Andrew Luck as a rookie. And all I'm saying is, and everyone like Andrew Luck had the greatest rookie season ever, but still he was able to do it with quarterbacks. I'm just saying with Wes Welker, and he had a decent year with Peyton Manning, which had a great offensive, team with offensive weapons.
That was the 2010s.
But that New England Patriots offense, man, they had weapons. You couldn't, like, people weren't even worried about Wes Walker at first because you had to worry about Moss. If Moss get 23 touchdowns, of course you're not going to be worried about Welker.
360 catches in 3 seasons. You tell me how that works out.
That's 3 seasons. If he can't do it his whole career,
Listen, he had 400. He had 480 catches in the decade, and he started the season as a special teams guy. Come on,
Look,
he averaged 90 catches a season when he actually got on the field. How many guys in the decade did that?
so do I have to go to my reference of music again and say you had a
Go
good
ahead.
album or two?
Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
But would you put him over? Come on, man. No, I'm not.
No, if you want to bring the music reference back, Mike, go get a music reference for this one. What music reference you got this week, Raphael? I'm waiting for this one.
We gotta go. I ain't gonna
Exactly.
No,
Exactly.
I can pull it up, but I'm saying it's 8:46. We gotta go, man.
I know.
But good list. This was
Of course.
great. It was hard. Like I was holding my head. Like all of these guys.
Yeah. I mean, Steve Smith, Andre Johnson, the guy who I had number 11. So, Raphael, who was your number 11? Who was the first guy you had left off your list?
I don't know. It was between Isaac Bruce or it was hard. It was Isaac Bruce. Probably Isaac Bruce. He was the one.
The guy has my number 11. I had Steve Smith, but the other guy I had on my list is a guy you probably wasn't going to mention because I know you. And that's Donald Driver of the Green Bay Packers.
He was it. It was Donald Driver because I got him listed as a matter of fact.
Okay, I just want to know because I know if you had
yard receiving, yeah, and I was like I had to leave him off. But hey man, it was great. I appreciate you all for watching. Danny, I appreciate you for listening.
Always.
Listening for coming on and do what we do, man. It was fun. Next week, quarterbacks
of the 2010s.
Yeah, 2010. So. All right, we're gonna go ahead and dismiss. We will see y'all next week, same time. It will be fun. I can't wait. Oh, Mike said, should we go Nas and Jay-Z?
Because neither Steve Smith is nowhere on the level of neither one of those two. He's like Memphis Bleak, but that's a different story for a different day.
Right. All right, man. So we out. Y'all be safe, stay healthy, keep focused on the task at hand. Social justice. Let's get Breonna Taylor's murderers arrested.
Please.
Now. All right,
please.
We out. Will you miss me? I didn't even say that earlier. Peace.